Hello everyone. Welcome to our new series of videos designed to help you make the most out of your life experiences. CyberBrainer is an online training platform designed to help individuals and teams learn the latest technologies and become certified professionals, producing a comprehensive learning experience. In this tutorial video, we will discuss about CyberArk. CyberArk is an information security firm that provides privileged access security solutions to organizations. It specializes in protecting privileged account security, protecting sensitive data, and detecting and responding to cyber threats. The company's solutions provide automated privilege management, secret protection, and privileged account security. If you're seeking to learn more about CyberArk, then you should definitely stay around and watch the complete video series. Here are the topics covered in this video series. What is privileged access? Syllabus of CyberArk course. CyberArk Security Solution and Architecture Environment. CyberArk Vault. CyberArk Vault Surveys. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel to know more about such interesting technologies and watch other videos in our CyberBrainer channel. For further details, contact us at sales@cyberbrainer.com. Now let us get into the video.
All right, let's start. So let me give you a quick recap on what we discussed on the last demo session. Basically, we talked about privileged accesses. So basically, any account that you have within the organization that has access to multiple systems, and even if it is restricted to one particular system, it has higher capabilities in that system. Yeah. Higher capabilities, as in the account will be able to install some softwares, the account will be able to modify some server level changes, or maybe even push some policies, create users, remove users. So these type of tasks, if you are able to perform, you're logged into the system with an account that has higher capabilities. And these are the type of accounts that we call privileged accounts. Accesses that flows through these type of accounts are what we call privileged access. Right? Privileged access is going to be created in every device that you have within the organization. There is going to be one or two accounts that will be used to perform maintenance tasks, push policies, update any new changes on the server. Those tasks will be performed using a privileged account. So Windows Server, Linux Server, printers, routers, switches, firewall devices. Every device you're going to have a privileged account created in that particular device. Okay. There are a few types of user. There are a few types of privileged accounts. Basically, there are two. First, interactive privileged account. Okay. Interactive privileged accounts are the accounts that are interacted with humans on very frequent basis. If your administrators, or if humans within the architecture, if it is being used by individuals to log into the target systems, to log into any systems, these type of accounts you are having daily interaction with. If you're typing in the username or password to log into the system, you're interacting with this account. Any password change, you're going to do it yourself. Any policy or permission elevation, you're going to do it yourself. So these type of accounts that you interact with on daily basis or on frequently, these type of accounts are called interactive privileged account. There are some examples of interactive privileged account. Basically, we have the super user account created within the system. So every system is going to have a super user account, which by default, it has the God level permissions. You cannot have any account that has higher permission than this particular account. Okay? So these type of accounts will be called, yeah. So basically, interactive privileged account, we have an example called super user account. Super user account will be created in every system that you have within the organization that has the highest level of permissions. And mostly these type of accounts will be used by your individual administrators or your support desk or your infrastructure admins in order to log in to the systems, do patchings, do policy changes, maintain the system, right? Similarly, you have Active Directory domain admin accounts. If you are not aware of what Active Directory is, we're going to talk more about Active Directory in coming sessions. We are even going to implement the Active Directory in our lab environment. But basically, Active Directory is a virtual repository to store all the resources within the organization. Active Directory is a virtual repository to store the resources within the organization. Resources as in any servers that you have or any workstations, any computers that you have. All of those resources, all the user accounts, all the privilege accounts will be created. All the user accounts, all the privileged account, all the server and workstations will be stored inside the Active Directory, which is going to act as a virtual repository. Okay. Now, this Active Directory, to manage the resources that you have stored within this Active Directory, you create an administrator account sometimes. Okay, sometimes you create an administrator account that will allow you to log into the Active Directory and maintain the resources. Okay, if let's say you want to troubleshoot something, if let's say you want to create more users or create more groups within your organization, these type of Active Directory domain admin accounts will be used by your Active Directory support team to log in and do all that work. Okay? Perform maintenance work in your repository. So again, an example of interactive privileged account, because it's going to be created for every individual Active Directory administrator. They'll type in the username and password to log into the Active Directory application and do their maintenance work. Okay. Same happens for your local administrators, that is going to be created in every system and sys administrators for databases. The idea here is that these type of accounts are the most privileged accounts within the architecture, and the individual users of your organization, the support team, the infrastructure admins are going to use these type of interactive accounts to type in the username and password to log into the system and to perform their maintenance work, right? This is why the users interact with these type of accounts, and this is why we call them interactive privileged account. Another type of privileged account we have here is non-interactive accounts. And non-interactive accounts are basically the accounts that has no interaction with humans at all, right? That has no interaction with humans at all during the login process and during the uh, functionalities. There is no interaction with the humans at all on the process. Let's take an example of this hard-coded credential here to understand what non-interactive account is. Uh, let's say we have a script that needs to log into some of the systems automatically. Some of the systems it needs to log into some of the systems, and it needs to push its functionality on all those systems. Let's say we have 100 servers within the organization, and this script needs to push its functionality to 100 servers in very limited time frame. Okay. So script needs to log into each one of these servers and to perform its functionality. Right? How does it logs into the servers? It has to provide a username and password, right? And it cannot depend on administrators. It cannot depend on humans to type in the username and password on each of the server. It cannot depend on humans to type in the username and password in each of the server, because it's going to be very tedious process, very complicated. The humans are going to be very slow during this process. And to make this process more effective, sometimes organizations write the username and password within the script itself. Within the script itself, they are going to write the username and password. And this username and password will be read by the script. Within the script will embed the username and password, the credential. And the script is going to read this credential in order to perform an automatic login to the servers without any human interaction. The script is going to read the credential and perform automatic login and push its functionality in every server that we have there. Okay. So this is what we call hard-coded credential. Hard-coded credentials are basically an example of non-interactive or non-human accounts because there is no interaction with humans at all. Right. Another example, we have service accounts. Okay. Services are basically a set of scheduled tasks, set of scheduled tasks that are performed automatically for any particular application. Okay, let's say you have a application that is installed on a server, and that application needs to perform certain tasks automatically. The application needs to perform certain tasks automatically, cannot depend on humans to do that, because those kind of tasks are going to be very frequent, let's say 100 times in a minute, cannot depend on humans to perform those tasks. Okay? So the application is going to create a scheduled task, is what we call services. Application is going to create services on the server, and this service is going to perform that functionality for the application, right? Sometimes the application might need to extend its functionality to other systems as well. Sometimes the application needs to log into different target systems in order to perform their task. And for that, it's going to depend on services as well. And if the service needs to log into other systems, it requires a credential, cannot depend on humans to type in the username and password. So within the service, you can write the username and password. Within the service, you can write the username and password, and the service can use this username and password to perform automatic login to other systems. Okay? There is no interaction with humans at all. The service is going to perform all those tasks automatically. These type of accounts that you map within the services is what we call service accounts. Very common term in IT industry, service account, right? These type of accounts that has no interaction with humans are called non-interactive or non-human accounts. Okay. Now, in any privileged access security implementation, the interactive accounts are going to be the priority number one. Why? Because these type of credentials are the most sensitive, most powerful credentials, and the passwords are directly exposed to humans. You're not mapping it in service or some script. The passwords are directly exposed to humans. They are typing in the username and password to log into the server. Passwords are exposed, making it more prone to the compromises, more prone to the attacks. Okay? So these type of credentials are the priority number one in any privileged access security implementation, whether it is CyberArk or Thycotic. This one goes first. Okay? The priority number two is going to be non-human or non-interactive accounts. That's privilege accounts as well. But in this case, the passwords are not as exposed as in case of interactive accounts. So we are going to talk about that in second phase of the project. Non-interactive credentials are imported privilege accounts as well, but not as exposed as the interactive ones. CyberArk has a different solution to manage non-human accounts, non-interactive accounts called Application Access Manager. We'll talk about that as well, but this is going to be the focus area. Right? Let's quickly move forward. Let's understand the risk associated with each of the privilege accounts that we are going to create within the organization. With every powerful account that you create, there are risk of exposure. There are risk that this account can be used in order to exploit the access to the servers. So there are some challenges that you need to take care of. Let's say if you do not secure these privilege accounts, what can go wrong? Okay? What are the risks associated? What can go wrong if you do not manage these risks? Okay? We'll try to understand this with some examples, some situations here. Okay? With three use cases, we'll try to understand the risk associated with the privilege account. Let's talk about this Active Directory domain administrator credential. Okay? This is basically Active Directory is a repository for all the resources that you have within the organization, and a lot of resources will be stored, like all the servers that are joined to your organizational architecture. Even if you are a mid-scale implementation, it's going to be around at least 1,000 servers. Okay? So this Active Directory domain administrator account can be used to access all the 1,000 servers that you have. Okay? This Active Directory domain administrator account anyone can use this account to log into all the servers at once. Okay? One single account can be used to access all the servers, and not only access, it's going to have administrative capabilities. It's going to be the most powerful account within those servers. So any changes on the server level, any modifications, this account can do, right? So this is how sensitive, this is how powerful these credentials can be, right? This is how powerful these credentials can be, and you do not want to leave them unsecured. Okay? This comes with a bigger risk. These type of accounts that can be accessed to can be used to access thousands of servers within the organization, can act as a key to your entire infrastructure. You do not want to lose them. Okay? Second, your accounts needs to be centralized. There should be a central repository for all the accounts that you have, whether it is created on server layer or whether it is created on application layer or database layer. Uh, all the privilege account should be stored in one central repository, because if they are not stored in one places, auditing can be very difficult in your organization. Okay? Auditing can be very difficult. Let's understand this this with a sample scenario, a situation. Let's say we have a application team, right? Any application team that wants to install another instance of their application. You have an application team. Let's consider the database team, right? Let's say consider the database team. The database team wants to build another instance of their database. Right? So how do they build that? They need a server for that. Right? They need a server where they'll do the installation. So they will create a request to the server infrastructure team for them to create a server. Right? They'll raise a request. Server team gets the request. They creates a server. They creates a server, and along with the server, they create a built-in administrator account, built-in local administrator account on the server, which they are going to use for future maintenance purposes, right? Pushing any patches or creating any users or modifying any policies. All those type of tasks they'll do with that particular server, with that particular account, right? So once the server is created, the account is there in the server. The server team hands over the server to the database team. Database team, when they get the server, they'll install the database instance, and within the database instance, they created a uh, administrator account that can be used to manage the database. Right? They created an administrator account to manage the database. Right? So now we have two privileged accounts created in one server being managed at two different places, one with the server team, one with the database team. Two privileged account created in one server being managed at two different places. And if this is the process that you follow, it's going to be the case with all the applications that you have, all the servers that you have. That means for thousands of servers, the privilege accounts will be managed at two different places. And if, let's say, I am the auditor, I want to retrieve the activities that are being done through these privilege accounts, I'll have to go to the server team in order to retrieve the activity of the server infrastructure account, right? The local administrator account that they created. And then I'll have to go to the database team to retrieve the activities of database account. I'll have to go to the application team to retrieve the activities of application account. The process will be very complicated, very tedious in this case. Auditing will not be done in proper and detailed manner. And it is very highly likely that you are going to, as an auditor, they are going to miss out on very important details. Okay? So this is where the solutions like CyberArk can help you. It can offer a platform where you can onboard all the privileged accounts, whether it belongs to application layer or whether it is created on server or whether it is created on database. All the accounts that you have can be onboarded on one single platform, which is CyberArk. And once the accounts are onboarded, any user that wants to use these accounts to connect to the respective target systems, they'll have to authenticate themselves in CyberArk first. And once they are authenticated, once they are properly authenticated, they will be uh, allowed to use the account to connect to the systems. And in this process, the passwords will not be exposed to them. And CyberArk is going to generate a detailed text log saying that this user has used this account to connect to this server. And once connected, this user has performed all these activities. So all the details, all the audit logs and records will be there in CyberArk. All the auditor needs to do in this case is simply log into the CyberArk user interface and retrieve all the details from there. Yeah, retrieve all the details from there. Every activity for every account, whether it is created on any layer, application, server, or database, the activity of those accounts will be waiting for them, and auditing will be very easy. Auditing will be much more easier, much more simpler and efficient in this process, and very less likely that auditors are going to miss out on some important details, right? So this is how CyberArk can make sure that auditings are done on proper and detailed manner. Third, there should be accountability. If you are using sensitive credentials that has access to multiple servers or resources, you should be accountable for your actions. You cannot just perform any activities and just get away with it, right? Because these are sensitive credentials, there should be some controls in place. Let's say I initiate this remote desktop connection client. This connection client is basically a software that allows you to connect to the servers remotely from your local machine. Most of you have must have gone through this. The remote desktop connection client allows you to connect to the systems remotely from your machine. All you need here is an IP address, a username, and a password. All you need is an IP address, a username, and password. Once you have all those details, you can simply initiate a connection from your local machine, from your laptop to the server, to any server within the organization, as long as you know the password of that account, right? So let's say I know the password of this administrator account. I'm going to initiate a connection to a server. Right? Once I'm connected to the server, I'm going to perform some unauthorized activity here. Right? I'll share some files to with someone who is not authorized. I'll delete some users. I'll remove some groups. Right? Who is going to know that has used the account to log into this server at this point of time and performed all these activities? Who is going to know that has used this account to log into this server at this point of time and performed all these activity? Because the server logs are going to say that this activity was performed by the administrator account and not the. Okay, so event logs are going to say that this activity was performed by administrator. So unless they track my IP, there is no way to understand who performed these activities. There is no way to understand who has performed these activities. So in this case, even if I am using the most sensitive credentials within the organization, I can get away with anything. I can do anything on the target system, and I'll just nobody is there to control my accesses. There is no audit logs. There is no trails of what I did. So this increases the internal threats. This direct action should be direct connection should be restricted, and this is where solutions like CyberArk can help you. You can onboard all of this privileged account, all the sensitive credentials within CyberArk, and as soon as the accounts are going to going to be onboarded inside CyberArk, it changes the password, so that password will no longer be exposed to the individual users. I do not know the password anymore because the account is now onboarded in CyberArk and the password is changed by CyberArk. But I have a genuine requirement to use this account in order to perform my daily task, right? So I will have to authenticate myself on the CyberArk user interface. And once I'm properly authenticated, I will be able to use this account to connect to the respective target IP. But in that case, CyberArk is going to automatically enter the password for me. Once it validates my authorization, it's going to enter the password automatically for me. it does not exposes the password. It enters the password on the backend. Users, without getting to know the password, they will be able to connect to the target system. They will be able to connect to the server. And once they are connected to the server, all the activities that they do are going to be monitored. Let's say I initiate a control panel window or a notepad window. There is going to be logs generated that Sanjeev has used this account to connect to this server and initiated control panel at this time, notepad at this time, right? So there are going to be text log generated detailing all my activities. And not only that, it's going to record my entire session in video format. So even a cursor move is going to be visible on those video recordings, and all those recordings will be saved in CyberArk for auditors to see. Right? This is how much control, this is how much visibility it's going to provide to the auditors, ensuring that if you are using sensitive credentials within the organization, you are accountable for your actions. You know that you are being audited. Right? Along with that, there are certain regulatory bodies, some regulatory bodies in place. If you have, if you have worked with banking or insurance domain, there is SOX compliance, there is payment card interface. If you have worked with healthcare domain, there is HIPAA compliance, right? All these regulatory bodies are in place and they have certain standards that every organization needs to follow. If they fail to follow these standards, there can be some fines imposed on them. And these fines are usually going to be very hefty. So what happens if you lose your credentials? What happens if you get your infrastructure compromised? Yeah. You're going to lose your data. You're going to lose your existing client, the business that you are working for. You're going to damage your reputation. You're going to get involved in lawsuits, right? Not an ideal situation to be in. This is why companies these days are aggressively looking to implement privileged access security solutions. This is why this domain is a growing domain these days, right? Let's quickly move forward. Right. So let's say if you are investing so much money in a privileged access management solution, this means privileged access management. Let's say if you're investing so much money in a privileged access management solution, there should be some expectations from the solution, right? There should be something in your mind that this is how the solution is going to provide a value to me. This is how it's going to provide a secure infrastructure for my privileged account, right? So let's understand some standard features of any privileged access security solution, any privileged access solution while implementing any privileged access security solution, whether it is CyberArk or Beyond Trust or Thycotic. Uh, you need to take the you need to keep these features in mind. So some standard features here. First, the ability to manage the passwords of the privilege accounts. Ability to manage the passwords of the privilege account. You should not keep static passwords for a longer period of time. Okay, you should not keep static passwords for a longer period of time for your privilege accounts, because with static passwords, a lot of risk are going to come. You should be able to rotate your passwords frequently, and this is where solutions, any privileged access security solution is going to help you, because in the infrastructure you can have thousands of privilege accounts, right? You're not going to rotate those passwords manually every 30 days or every 60 days. So you would be able to define a policy on the CyberArk or any privileged access security tool. You would be able to define a policy related to the rotation frequency, like how frequently the passwords of your privilege account should be rotated, should be changed, right? Apart from that, you should also be able to define the complexity of the passwords, like what would be the length of the password, does it include any special character, does it include any digits, all of that you should be able to define. And the solution should be able to read the policies that you have defined and execute the password changes on the interval that you have defined. Automatically, all the passwords should be changed based on the policies that you have defined. Second, there should be limitations on the privileged account. You should not allow everyone to have access to the privileged account. There should be a least privileged method imposed here. That means only those permissions should be provided that you require, that any individual requires to complete their task. Okay? Not greater, not lesser. Only those permissions should be provided that an individual absolutely requires in order to complete their task. Okay? Let's take an example of a developer here. Developer needs to log into a system. He needs to perform certain code changes and then he needs to log off. He does not need to install any software or perform any configurational changes, right? All he needs to do is perform some code change and then he needs to log off. You do not really allow him to use the administrator account, right? You simply create a read-only standard user account for them and allow them to use that account in order to log into the CyberArk, in order to log into the systems, right? So you provision the access to the read-only account. That means you're only providing the permissions that is required for the developer to complete their task. You're imposing the least privilege method. And that's what the solution is going to help you to achieve, right? Audit trail should be there if users are using sensitive credentials onboarded on the privileged access management tool. There, the tool should be able to generate the logs of each user is using what account to log into what server at what time. Session management, as in monitoring of the sessions, tracking the activity, recording the sessions in video format. Keystroke login should be there, as in any high privileged command that you're executing in a command line interface. Those should be recorded, right? Let's say you executed a command of uh, add user, or maybe even password reset. So those commands should be recorded in a text format for the auditors to see, right? Multi-factor authentication should be there. Multi-factor authentication, as in the ability to make your users go through dual factor of authentication, right? Not only the username and password, when the user tries to log into the PVW or CyberArk systems, they do not have to type the username and password only. They'll also have to go through the multi-factor authentication system. Now you can multi-factor authentication. There are a lot of tools available in the market that can help you to implement the multi-factor authentication. You have Duo, you have Okta, you have Radius, RSA tokens, lot of tools. CyberArk allows you to integrate all the tools that are out there. Does not have an MFA solution of its own, but it allows you to integrate all of the MFA solutions that are out there. Multi-factor authentication provides another layer of security before your users get to the privileged account. Right? Session management functionality should be there. Session management, as in monitoring of the sessions if they are being initiated using a sensitive credential. Monitoring, as in activities tracking, what type of applications users are initiating on the target system if they are logged in with a sensitive credential. And let's say they initiate a control panel or a notepad window or any application one, there should be text log generated saying that this user has used this account to connect to the system and initiated this application at this time, control panel at this time, all those kind of tracking of the activities. Recording of the sessions in video format should be there, and isolation of the session. Session isolation is basically a term that is used for isolating the information overlap between two sessions if the sessions are being initiated using the same account to connect to the same server. When you have privilege accounts created, it is not limited to a single individual, right? Multiple people are going to use that account. So sometimes when multiple users use that account to connect to the system, the sessions can get overlapped. That means information that user one saves on the server can be visible for user two. And that is what we want to prevent. That is what we want to isolate with this session isolation feature. We'll talk more about this in coming session. We'll get to know why it is required and what are the use cases of session isolation and what are the backend process that gets executed in order to achieve this feature. But that's something for later. Just in time or temporary access should be there. Okay? Temporary access as in the ability to provide temporary access to the users if they do not really require the access on the permanent basis. Okay? If they do not require access on permanent basis, the tool should be able to provision the access to, I'm sorry, this. The tool should be able to provision the access to the servers on temporary basis. The user should be able to define a time period, and based on the defined time period, as soon as the time period expires, the access should be automatically deprovisioned. This is what these are certain some features that every privileged access security solution should have. These are the expectations from every privileged access security solution. We are going to talk about how CyberArk manages these expectations. What is the approach that CyberArk follows in order to manage these credentials? But any questions or anything that you want to discuss so far? For the most of the platforms, most of the devices that will be used, most of the mainstream devices that will be used in our organizational architecture, CyberArk covers that. It comes out of the box inside CyberArk. You do not have to develop any processes. It can provide password management and session management capabilities for Windows systems, for Linux systems, databases, both Oracle and SQL, MySQL, network devices, firewall devices, checkpoint clients, a lot of other systems are out there. And CyberArk is continuously developing the platforms for the newer applications as well. There is a marketplace website they have developed where a lot of recent applications are connectors or components for recent applications are being uploaded. And if you do not find your respective device in the CyberArk out of the box, you can go to marketplace website in order to download those platforms. But most of the mainstream devices will be covered.
Okay, good. So, at some point in time, if you can share the resource where they list all of these supported devices, right? That will be helpful.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. That is something that I can do. Sure. All right. Any other questions or anything that you want to discuss before we move forward? Okay, I guess not. All right, we do not have much time. Let's not start a new topic. A lot of you are joining this as a first session. So let me give you a quick overview on what this course is going to look like for you. What are the syllabus, what is the course content, and what should be your expectations from this course. Let me just fetch this. So on the module 1, we are going to talk about the privileged access management introduction. What are the pain areas? Why do we need privileged access management in the first place? What are the risks associated with each of the privileged accounts that you create? And what are the expected solution? How do we manage those risks? What should be the expectations from any privileged access security solution? Right? In module 2, we are going to learn about CyberArk. What is the approach that CyberArk follows in order to manage those risks, in order to manage those expectations. So in module 2, the next module, we are going to learn about this approach that CyberArk follows in order to manage the credential. We are going to have a discussion about the brief architecture of CyberArk. I'm going to give you some graphical details on how the component functionality work and a brief idea about the typical architecture that CyberArk has. And in module 3, we are going to talk about different component that CyberArk has. Right? The CyberArk has different components for different functionalities. For backend database, it has the vault, storage repository, it has the vault. For front-end user interface, it has PBWA. For session management capabilities, privilege session manager is there, password management capabilities, central policy manager is there. We'll talk about the communication, the prerequisites, the backend process that gets executed in order to achieve all these functionality. We'll try to spend half an hour to 1 hour on each of these theory of these components. And once we have covered the theory, once the theory is complete, we are going to jump on to the lab environment. Basically, we will be creating a virtual lab environment for you, where for each of you, a dedicated set of 5 set of servers will be dedicatedly created for you guys, and the CyberArk softwares will be copied in those devices, and you'll get an opportunity to do the complete hands-on and build your own customized CyberArk architecture. I will be dictating the steps. We'll be starting with the product installation. We'll learn the prerequisite, the port requirements that you need to have, and then the Vault installation. We'll build our own Active Directory from scratch. We'll integrate the Active Directory with CyberArk architecture. We'll build the password management, session management component. And once the infrastructure building is complete, along with the steps that I discussed on the session and recordings, you'll also get this exercise guide, which contains detailed steps of whatever we discussed during the session, all those detailed steps, and along with the screenshot, so you can even practice it on your leisure time. This guide contains all the component installation and a lot of integration topics that we are going to talk about. Okay? So you can refer to this guide as well if you want to practice in your leisure period. Once the architecture installation is complete, we are going to talk about policies, where we'll talk about certain master policies, some platform policies. How do we set the policies for password management? How do we set policies for session management? We'll talk all about that in module 7. In module 8, we are going to talk about the access provisioning. How do we allow our users, our individual users, to have access on the sensitive credentials that we have onboarded inside CyberArk? How do we be more granular with the permission? What kind of permissions do we provide for the users? Do we provide access for them to be able to see the password? Or do we only allow the user to connect to the system? Okay? Do we allow them access to change the password? So all those type of access provisioning and permissions on the safe level, we will talk about in module 8. We'll understand the access metrics. We'll understand more granular level of permissions on the safe. We'll also understand how we can control accesses on each on single account that we onboard inside CyberArk. Module 9 will be integration module, where we will be onboarding some Windows accounts, some Linux accounts. We'll learn manual onboarding. We'll learn automatic onboarding, right? In module 10, we are going to have some daily to daily use cases, where we will talk about how the onboarding process works inside CyberArk. What is the password management process? How does the password management works? How does the authentication works inside CyberArk? We'll have a separate session on auditing and reporting, where we will get to learn the basic, how do we help our auditors to get the details that they need? Okay, how do we help our auditors to get the details that they need? How do we allow them to see the session recordings? Module 11 is now integrated with module 13. So we will talk about backup and DR in the same module. In module 12, we are going to talk about troubleshooting use cases. So let's say suddenly something goes wrong with our CyberArk systems. Let's say suddenly front-end UI stops responding. How do we deal with those type of situations? What kind of logs do we check? Well, how do we approach those situations, right? So some real-time use cases will be there. We'll be talking about how do we fix problems in our CyberArk architecture. In module 13, we will talk about the disaster recovery. So basically, disaster recovery is going to be a backup of our existing primary database. We will create a backup so that if in case our primary vault or primary database is impacted, the users will still be able to retrieve the information from disaster recovery. They should still be able to retrieve the information, and their service should not be interrupted even if the primary vault is impacted. So we'll set up the disaster recovery architecture from scratch in module 13, and we are also going to learn. We are also going to do a demo disaster recovery drill to see how it works in real time, how automatic failovers can take place, and how can you restore your infrastructure back to the way it was. So these are the modules that we are going to cover. Apart from that, you'll get this administration exercise guide, which contains 250 pages of booklets with all the exercises related to the password management use case, user management, the discovery and onboarding, automatic onboarding, and how the access workflows work. So all the use cases are there. You can go through this guide in order to practice more. We'll be covering most of the topics here as well. This guide is going to be basically your go-to one for level 2 certification Defender. If you cover all the use cases from this guide, I think there should be more than enough for level 2. And if you cover all the use cases from this exercise guide, this should be more than enough for level 3 certification. So this is what we are going to offer in this course. Application Access Manager is going to be a different module. It's going to be a different software, different licenses, but I'll give you a brief explanation on the Application Access Manager module. I will talk about how it works, credential provider and central credential provider. Basically, how does the REST API calls? I'll give you, can schedule a separate session on that, and we'll give you a brief walkthrough on that.
Okay, that will be helpful. Thank you.
Yes.